Welcome to the webinar for Performing Arts Readiness on workplace violence prevention. This is one of many workplace or performing arts webinars that are available to you. I learned about Performing Arts Readiness on one of those and have done lots of fun things with them since. It's a great group of people, and we noticed when doing evaluation of a arts and cultural facility out there in California that this SB553 was something that a lot of organizations are needing to get done and could use some assistance in getting done. So we called our friends over at Californians for the Arts, and they were like, of course we want to do this. And we've got folks on here now. Nefesha is going to be co-hosting with me. Good morning, Nefesha. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Matthew. Thank you. Thank you for having us here with this webinar as well.
We're really glad you're here. Can you tell everybody a bit about what you do there?
Absolutely. So California for the Arts, we're a statewide arts advocacy organization. We do a lot of interpreting and translating legislation to the field. We connect and convene. And again, we do advocacy through statewide programs, services, and developing advocacy networks. I am the director of programs for California for the Arts. We also have a sister organization, which is our 501c4, where we do comprehensive lobbying throughout the state of California.
Thank you. And so we have, I'll give you the run of show here in advance. We've got expert from Cal OSHA, Carmen, who's going to be giving her a great presentation on how you get your organization ready for this. We're going to do a poll, which I think we should go ahead and throw out now. We want to know who's in the room and what brought you here. And then we are going to share a great plan from an organization. It's a training from the Escondido Center, the California Center for the Arts Escondido. And Carmen is from down there in San Diego area where Escondido is. And we're excited for her to get into her presentation. But before that, let's see, are you seeing a poll come through your chat? We want to maybe invite you in the chat right now to say your name and where you're coming from, what your organization is.
I saw the poll pop up on my end, so everyone should have received it there.
Great. Host and panelists can't vote. We can't
Right.
we can't do that. All right. Well, fine. All right. So as the poll goes, maybe let's check in after Carmen's finished. We are going to pause the recording while Carmen does hers as per required by Cal OSHA, but we'll send you the resources. So if you don't want to share with other people how to get your organization up to speed, they can find that. And then we're going to start recording again as we digest this together with Julie Baker from Californians for the Arts and Julia Lavazari from the State Fund. We're seeing people popping in the chat. I'll just kind of say a few of these so it gets into the recording. From New Jersey, and Algonquin Arts, and Sarah from the Dallas Opera. Hello, Sarah. She actually applied for and got a Performing Arts Readiness grant to do safety planning at their wonderful opera there in Dallas. Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation, Oberlin, Ohio. Chuck Tate, who's from Chuck Tate. Patrice Miller from New York City, a small company called Untitled Theater. California Symphonies here, Grenada Theater from Santa Barbara, Choreographers Project. A lot of these people are sounding familiar to you, I'm sure, Nefesha, as the State Arts Agency. Thank you so much for being our partner and getting the word out about this. I know that these folks are your people. I'll throw out this kind of thing to everybody who's not from California. You know how like your car emissions, they make it for California emission standards. This is sort of how it goes on other things sometimes nationally where California gets to it first. And so like there's extreme heat legislation that's come out about how to take care of your employees for heat that the national OSHA has done. And that was probably largely borrowed from the California version of heat preparedness. And so similarly, those of you who are on this call, not from California, you're doing a good job by thinking ahead of how to be prepared for these sort of things, whether or not it's the legal requirement. So right on for everybody who's in here for that reason. Okay, boy.
I hop in and just clarify,
Please.
our organization is statewide arts advocacy organization. There is California Arts Council, which is a whole separate arts agency. So just wanted to make sure that there was that clarity, especially for people outside of the state, so you can have an understanding that we do arts advocacy here in California.
Boy, I'm not even sure what I said, but I'm sure you
No,
clarified
it's
it because I
okay.
thought that's what you were. My mouth sometimes just goes without me.
All
Any other
good.
any other clarifications or things you want to call out here, Nefesha, on
No,
who's in the room?
it's excellent. I would just call out one of our prior board members, Eliza Tudor's on. So thank you for joining us from Nevada, California, and seeing all of the California people on here is great. Thank you.
And Nefesh, anything else as you've gotten your head around this presentation that you're especially looking forward to with what Carmen's going to help give some color to?
Definitely am interested in seeing how organizations can be prepared, especially our organizations, smaller organizations, and how we can work to develop our plans, the workforce, excuse me, violence. I'm trying to remember the entire name for that, the SB553, but yeah, I'm just interested in learning more and that all of our organizations can be well prepared.
I think for me, what I'm looking forward to a lot is to hear about what Carmen's going to share about how to involve your all employees in this plan. That seems like a great aspect of how this is going. A lot of times organizations will kind of do an emergency plan at the top and not include all workers. And this is a pretty important thing that's been baked into this. And I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation with Julie Baker afterwards about how even if you don't have 10 employees formally, why this is something you should think about and how the arts and cultural workforce tends to work. So there's lots to learn. Stick around till the end. And Carmen, get ready. We're going to hand over to you in a second here. I called Carmen after working with the Escondido Center for the Arts and asked if they were interested, and she right away was happy to help and come and present this. I think it's important that we get this right from Cal OSHA, and the Carmen will describe why they're in the mix here. But this is a good collaboration between different organizations in California, and we're excited to have you folks. Here's Carmen to assist. All right, Nefesha, welcome back. What questions came up for you after you saw Carmen's presentation and saw the questions that came across the chat?
Well, one of the questions that I think that we can discuss in a little bit with our panelists, it came in the chat, in the Q&A. It's about the two. Donna asked, we're a 2-week music festival every July in a tent in State Park land with extensive permitting processes. We hire seasonal workers to erect and strike the tent. The public gathers around the tent and housing challenge people sometimes gather as well. How would we communicate with all of those people? So that was just one question that I saw pop up, and I think it also just got dropped into our Q&A document. But so hopefully we can kind of have some dialogue around that. But as I was listening to Carmen, I was thinking about the exceptions. I think that Carmen mentioned about like virtual organizations, fully teleremote organizations being exempt as well. So I wanted to make sure that that was a clear thing. And then, just looking at different organizations that have various employees or have, like Donna mentioned in the Q&A with the 2-week festival, there's within the arts, there's so many very variables. And so those were all things that really that stuck out to me as we talk about this, and then really thinking about the arts in particular.
I think like making pancakes, the first one's sort of the hardest, and then the griddle gets hot and they come out better. So I think with that one you talked about with the live event, the first time they make this plan is going to be the hardest, but in subsequent years, it's not going to be as challenging in so many ways. And I think let me go ahead and walk through the Escondido one because it's got some things in there that I think if it was my festival, I would say, okay, the most important things is, we talk about this being a safe workplace. There's not going to be repercussions for reporting, that see something, say something, what you hear about at FEMA and the emergency preparedness work we've done, we've found that to be true a lot of the time. It's not just an old chestnut. And so your employees and staff feeling safe reporting things before they get really bad, that's important. And even if they're temporary employees who've come in, setting that from the get-go is going to really pay dividends in the end, and that you're setting a culture of safety. A lot of what we're doing as cultural workers, this is a good news for us. We're good at talking to each other. We're good at talking to people with different backgrounds, including folks who are in the space who might be, that's a complex thing you're talking about in here. It's like we're throwing a festival along with all these other stakeholders. But that's what we're here to do. It's tough work, but we'll get into it. All right. Is it okay if I jump into Escondido for a minute, and Nefesh, anything
Absolutely, let's do
else?
it.
All right. So this is kind of and help me again with how I make it so you don't see my presenter view. What do I push again? I go play from start, and then I hit the use slideshow.
Yep, you got it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through some of this kind of fast. Good news, we're sharing this thing with you as a PowerPoint. You can make changes as you like, and we have one in Spanish too. Shout out to Escondido Center for the Arts, doing great work here to make it visual and to speak to us, in that way. So it talks about a lot of what Carmen talked about, but with some, graphic design stuff that we can do in the private sector. These are the types of violence, type 1 through 4. And again, let's just recap. You need to do training with your employees. It needs to be effective. Provide retraining for those folks who come in and out, or if their performance is deficient. Recognize those employees who are doing great work. Give some high fives and show model what good stuff looks like. When I do workplace violence or workplace safety, I really encourage people to just write up something that's a little bit moderate. Like, encourage those write-ups. You'd be surprised how often people don't do any reporting, and that book is just kind of empty. And then discipline. If stuff's getting out of whack, you need to figure out how to show that you're going to make corrections, and show that the reporting is not something you're going to be dinged on. All right, so go ahead and borrow this, take it. The evacuation plans, this is important. There's a lot of organizations with some accessibility deficiencies, and if you think about people with accessibility needs getting in and out of your building, or their workplace violence prevention plan, if you think of folks with those specific needs and accommodations being safe, then everybody's going to benefit. This plan, where did I want to get to? I think going kind of quickly, a shelter in place plan. Making your workplace unattractive to robbers. Here's something that you should know. Like, let's say you've got a bunch of cameras around your site that helps with safety, or at least it used to, but now those cameras don't work anymore. There's been organizations that have been sued after there was workplace incidents because they didn't take those cameras down. They just left them up, or they made it seem like they worked when they didn't. So at any rate, your surveillance measures, you need to keep them in good repair. And then thinking about your site, kind of people bouncing off it if they are, a lot of times people who are thinking of doing violence will test a site to see if it's vulnerable, and if they bounce off, then you might not have the problem down the road. So think about how to make your place, folks can bounce off that are coming to look for doing harm. And we are in a weird place, right? We're hosting mass gatherings, and those are often the target of people who want to do bad things. And so we're at quite an intersection here of workplaces that are somewhat irregular with our employees, and often a place that gets targeted. This says a diffusing hostile situations, way to go putting that in there. This kind of talks about how to be more effective as a person running a venue to hopefully dissuade these things from happening, but seek help when you need to. We can't solve all problems. Then some advice about what to do during these to get medical attention, and then some post-event resources for getting counseling. This closing out procedure, all caps here, you need to be reporting these events and people need to know there won't be retaliation. Um, and then here's the breakout session. This is where I wanted to get to. This gives you some advice for what you might do when you get your employees together to do a session where you're gathering information about risks, you're gathering information about concerns, and then you're talking about what you do during an emergency. These are the group breakout sessions. So you might do this with your contractors. Maybe you hire a lot of bands that come in and out of your venue a lot. And you know who they are, and they're starting to kind of get into, maybe it's a symphony and it's your your members of your choir, and having them be involved in this would make everybody feel more safe, right? So then you do these breakout sessions and maybe go through some scenarios, get people talking about if something happened. A lot of times breaking through some of the fear and talking about what you do when stuff gets hard is just the first part of helping things go better when you're under stress. So yeah, this is it. There's a bunch of scenarios. I'll go ahead and share this with you later. And then the last part that's probably of good use is doing those assessments of your venue. Here's a version of that. And you might want to see what this rolls up into when somebody does a full disaster plan, emergency plan. Here's what it looks like. I can't dive into it for confidentiality of my partners, but it looks something like this. Um, Here's a whole plan for your security folks, your outdoor events, your heat illness prevention, which we should probably talk about on a future episode. And then you dive into this should be SB553. And then you would do inspections of your department. I can share some of these too, but then where's the template? Sorry, I want to do one that's blank. Here it is. Okay, so this would be done by your different departments, and you take a look at, the outdoor of the building. Is there a place that's dark and shady, right, where people come in on their bicycles and they could sneak in the building? Doing a very open, honest, and brave assessment of your venue to think about how these workplace violence things might, what risks you have, and then what mitigations you might take. So that's a template that we'll share with you as well. Nefesha, should we get ready to introduce Julie? And we're excited to talk about what you all know, your institutional wisdom about how performing arts organizations are going to be interfacing with this new law. What else, Nefesha, should we know before we get to her?
Well, we got a short amount of time, so I think we can just kind of dive in and let Julie kind of speak a little bit. I know there were some questions about independent contractors that people will have some questions around. Julie is a CEO of California for the Arts, along with California Arts Advocates, and you can see her there. So, yeah,
Hey,
I think
everyone.
that would be best.
Hi. Yeah, we just have about 20 minutes left, so I thought maybe, and Julie, also from State Fund, I thought could jump on. I don't think we need to separate the Julies. And I think what I just wanted to make sure that there's a lot of questions around independent contractors versus employees, which I know Julie from State Fund has been putting some stuff in the chat, and I'm sure there's a lot more resources on that. For those of you who are in California who are running performing arts organizations, you know that California for the Arts has worked for years on addressing the impact of Assembly Bill 5 on having most people will have to become employees where they have historically been independent contractors in the arts, particularly in performing arts. And in fact, SB 1116, which was signed by the governor in 2023, will help address the impact of your costs in your payroll costs with reimbursements, which California Office of Small Business Advocate will be working on soon in terms of implementation, and people with nonprofit performing arts organizations under 2 million can apply. So just wanted to put a info out about that. But I think it's important that people recognize that you want to make sure that you've actually done the test to determine that that person truly is an independent contractor versus an employee. Because if you're not going to count them, and let's say you say, great, we're only, 5 people because we use independent contractors, and hopefully nothing ever happens in the degree that we're talking about in terms of workplace violence. But if something does, and you have misclassified them as an independent contractor, that's just going to put you into all sorts of issues. So one of the things that I think Julie from State Fund was going to put a link in the chat with how you can identify which independent contractor versus employee. I know this has been a long time discussion in California with the arts since 2020 when that law happened. So that's just something I wanted to highlight in terms of this. The other thing I wanted to highlight, I used to run a performing arts center, ran a world music festival. We were in multiple venues. We had an amazing facilities manager who did create a workplace violence protection plan way before this bill, just because understanding that when you are doing gatherings, you are having a lot of people coming into your space. And sadly, we are living in a fairly violent world, unfortunately, and we do need to be prepared, and we need to be responsible, and we need to be responsible to protect our employees, whether you classify them as an independent contractor or not. So I think that's really critical. The other thing I wanted to share is that when Carmen talked about rules, that is an opportunity for advocacy. So I do want people to start to look at what is this law, how is this impacting you, and what kind of advocacy do we need as a field in terms of the arts to address some of the impact of this on your own operations and ability to do this work. We also understand that this is a resource issue. This could be a cost issue. Although there have been grants, they're not all available anymore. So this is also something to advocate to philanthropy around, that these are types of things that happen in California where we have a lot of rules and regulations and laws to protect employees. This is not a bad thing. It's just that this is what's happening. Those have costs. So if we are in an arts nonprofit, and we know that a lot of our funding is coming from philanthropy, because we still are not yet where we want to be in public funding for the arts, which we'll continue to work on, then let's make sure that philanthropy understands that you have direct costs to be in compliance with state laws. And I think that what's critical about this, Carmen did an amazing presentation. A lot of this is really meaty, difficult stuff for all of us to kind of understand. So you have a lot of resources out there that you should be utilizing, and recognizing that there are a lot of things that happen in state government that are going to impact how you operate your business. And it's really critical that you're tracking these so that you are in compliance, so that should something happen, that you are not seeing these kind of fines. And of course, the thing you want to prevent, of course, is any tragedy, of course. So I think actually, Julie, I would pass it to Julie to talk about what are the resources that are available for folks that in order to be able to come into compliance with this law.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. Yeah. And thank you, Carmen. Yes, she did a great job. But yes, folks, I just want to let you know that, State Fund is one of those resources that can help you. State Fund is our official name, State Compensation Insurance Fund, and we write workers' compensation insurance exclusively, and we do that exclusive to California. Now, I understand that there are many of you from out of state listening today, but please know that you are all welcome to visit our website, safeatworkca.com, and it's on my name here, under my on my picture here, but you are more than welcome to. So all of our, most of our resources are available to you for free. And, we link to all Cal OSHA resources right now, as Carmen pointed out, and we've dropped several links there on all the publications for you to use. But, we at State Fund are always here to support you. So, you can always drop us a line at safetysupport@skiff.com, and I can drop that into thank you, Jenny, very much for putting that in there for the website. But yeah, safetysupport@skiff.com. You can always ask us questions. If you're a policyholder from State Fund and you're in California, even better. You have access to our online safety university, which is our learning management system. And of course, our wonderful loss prevention engineers and consultants at State Fund. to help you navigate. And we work very closely with OSHA consultation, as Carmen talked about. We have an alliance with OSHA, so we're always here to support California workers in whatever capacity we can. Of course, State Fund can answer those questions too that Julie talked about, independent contractors versus an employee. Again, we dropped a link in there for better clarification. But, always as a best practice, you want to include those people. So even if they are independent contractors and you're giving a safety talk, and you're presenting your workplace violence plan or your injury and illness prevention plan, as Carmen emphasized, you want it to be effective. Why bother having a program if it's not, right? So we want to ensure that, everybody is protected, whether they're an employee or not. And you got to remember that even if they're independent contractors and they're on that site with you or at that venue, at that event, and they're not prepared, that could cause even more problems maybe for your employees, right? And you just want everybody to be prepared and be ready for it. So, as Carmen said, the injury and illness prevention program is a safety program that is required in the state of California for all workers. And the new workplace violence prevention plan is very similar. It's very, very similar. So you want to make sure that, just everybody's protected. And we're here to help.
And I would just add that I think it was interesting too for folks in the arts, like if you're running a presenting organization, which I think I saw some here, where you have a band coming through just for the night, that band need to be briefed on your workplace, plan, plan. But in some ways, probably they need to be briefed on where are the exits? What do we do in case of emergency? What if the power goes out? I mean, I'm in Northern California and the power goes out. California power goes out sometimes. What happens in that case? So I think that there's some interesting nuance to running an arts organization that is very different than, let's say, running, even a restaurant, right? Or a manufacturing facilities that we can continue to sort of dig into. And I think it's really important for all of us to also hear from you who are having to implement these. And that's where the rules comes in, where you can say, what about this scenario? What about this scenario? And what does that look like in terms of compliance? Because what you really want to make sure is that your own organization does not get fined if you've been out of compliance should something happen at your facility.
Yeah. And you don't want to be the one that makes that phone call either, right? That somebody's not coming home. And that's the worst phone call you can make. So, fines and compliance and all that, but right, somebody's life could be affected. So do the right thing.
We have a partner in the podcast we do with Art of Mass Gatherings is APAP's Artwork Life podcast. And there was a young woman who did a story last season about being the box office manager at a university presenting theater. And one of the managers for a band was a total creepazoid. And she didn't feel like she could leave the box office because there was other young women working there. And so I think of the points we're making about like how do you talk to bands about the exits and all of that in the case of a workplace violence, but then also setting this you'd have that moment at the beginning of like, this is the workplace we have, this is the safety, we're taking care of each other, we're not gonna and is everybody feeling safe? And if not, let us know. It might be like, hey, I've got a restraining order against so and so, and if they come into the venue, then that way you're kind of getting in front of some of these things to know that that everybody's on the same page about the see something, say something really is important. One other thing I'll throw out there for a lot of organizations that surprisingly don't have awareness of this is that there's a crowd manager requirement that you have one person for every 250 people who's certified as a crowd manager. It's only like a $20 certification, but there's one of the examples I make in there was a fire at like a Beverly Hills club where the busboy jumped up on the stage and directed people out of the building because none of the exits were well marked. But he saved all these folks' lives. And so, again, I just love that in California we're saying all employees, even your custodial staff, need to be involved in this. They're the ones who are in the building after hours. It's whole village to kind of get preparedness all put together. So, any other thoughts about that? We do have a few more minutes. Julie Baker. And oh, just to be clear, Julie Lavazzare's organization, they are managing this pool of money that is going to go out and get paid out if there's a crisis, and they want to see less accidents. They want to see that money not have to get paid out unnecessarily. So they're not like your State Farm agent. They are an organization of you, by you in California, who's just trying to make sure everybody is able to do good work without so many vulnerabilities. Julie, what else do you think about big picture with this stuff in your state and where to go from here?
Yeah, I mean, again, I just think it's really critical that the arts sector, the arts industry that has, as Nefesha mentioned from the beginning, a lot of variables, right? The way that we do our work is very different. I've always said, gosh, it would be amazing to map all the ways that the arts do what we do. And so I think it's critical for those who are making the laws and those who are implementing the laws, which is the state agency, Cal OSHA in this case, understand what we are up against in terms of our own scenarios. And that is where you can have that influence in terms of commenting on the rules, sending in your comments and questions, letting us know. We also, as Nefesha mentioned, we have a lobbying organization. Is there something that you feel that, public the officials need to understand that is impacting our sector that's different from other ways that this is being implemented? So I think that, there's influence that we can have. And I think it's also really critical that we do advocate for what we need to protect employees, to create safe environments for our audiences as well, and for the artists that are there, so that, it's a holistic approach to this, but it also is realistically a cost and a resource too, right? We understand that. So how do we do all of this to make it make sense for everyone? And so I think everyone has a role to play in this. But I think it's really important that folks understand that there is a lot of laws being passed every year in California that are going to impact how they run their business. And so thanks to, everyone here for putting on a webinar like this, so people understand that this is actually law as of July 1st.
Thank you. I would say if we could, let's take a quick look, Shania, and thank you for all the support from Shania and Jennifer from Majestic, and Jenny from Majestic, and the Performing Arts Readiness Organization for hosting this. These are provided on the Performing Arts Readiness site. As you can review, please share these. There's lots of other classes to take about crisis communications for organizations. University of Kentucky is going to be offering a master's course in this, in arts emergency management, and folks who are nerdy and want to get into that more, there's a great community growing there. We're seeing from Leah, the big divide she's found in Colorado who are creating labor laws, policy creation, implementation on the state and city level, and the realities of the art sector. Slowly getting more in alignment, but so much more to do. Yeah, that's why we're here. We wanted to have this last half to talk about how it affects us, when these laws go in. We're so glad that you appreciated this. And I think we have a quick minute to look at the survey results. It kind of shows us who's here and why. All right, so community organizations. How many people answered it? Well, some galleries and museums, lots of music, theater, performing arts venues, and a lot of California people. A lot in that 6 to 20 employees, and over 50 were quite a few too. I think it's good to see that people are classifying a lot of employees. It's probably the way to go. That's one of our messages here is guess a little bit higher, because a trial lawyer is going to do their best if they're trying to get money out of your organization to say, here's who the employees were that you didn't classify correctly. Sorry to be a little scary about it, but that's what we're trying to be prepared for, so that you can stay around after a lawsuit. Do you use contractors? No surprise, 76% say yes. How prepared do you feel? Looks like there's not a lot of, not everybody's afraid that they're not prepared, but there's definitely some interest there saying, I better do some more work here. Well, we're here. We sure appreciate you, Carmen, sharing this from Cal OSHA. Thank you to the Julies, Nefesha, my co-host. Do you have anything else to say to help us close out here?
No, I'll just say that there's been a host of resources shared, and within a week they'll be shared out to everyone. So you'll get an email and utilize those resources. So thank you to everyone that joined, and also to our panelists today, and especially Carmen for your presentation.
Thank you.
Be safe out there, and we appreciate everybody's interest in this kind of capacity building with your venues. You do a really important service for your community. We know that this is a labor of love, and trying to see what the power of stories and culture and community can do, and keep it up. Stay strong out there. It's worth it. And catch you again. I think we may do a follow-up of this, and do check out the Art of Mass Gatherings podcast for a digest of this in the coming weeks. That's a little bit more accessible to get people into the flow of this need. All the best. Thank you, Nefesha. Appreciate your co-hosting on this.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Julie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye.